Welcome to our tax budget public hearing procedure. We'll bring this meeting to order on Monday, June 24th, 2024 at 5 o'clock. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5705.30, notice is hereby given that on Monday, June 24th, 2024 at 5 p.m. a public hearing will be held on the 2025 tax budget prepared by Beavercreek Township, Greene County, Ohio, for the next fiscal year ending December 31st, 2025. Such a hearing will be held in the community room lower level of Fire Station Number 61, 2095 Dayton Senior Road, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45434. A copy of the proposed 2025 tax budget will be available for public inspection in the Finance Department located at 851 North Orchard Lane, Beavercreek, Ohio, 45434, and is available to inspect during posted business hours. We have staff comments and presentation, please.
Yes, Board. As we do each and every single year, as you mentioned, the Ohio Revised Code, we have to present a tax budget for your consideration. This tax budget is a statutory obligation. Essentially, we cannot budget for more monies that we anticipate to bring in. So by this exercise, this is the tool in which the state of Ohio prescribes local entities to adopt. In front of you is a schedule of appropriations where we show 3 years of actual expenditures as well as forecasted expenditures for 2024 and then what we anticipate for 2025. This is purely perfunctory. We input a CPI or a consumer price index for what we anticipate inflation is going to be for 2025. And this just establishes the starting point, just the starting point for our 2025 budget. Once we submit this to the Greene County Budget Commission, they'll review it to see if what we have is reasonable. From there, they'll establish our certificate of resources, which is our maximum in which we can begin to appropriate for 2025. Once we receive that certificate of resources, we'll bring it back to you per the Ohio Revised Code. We'll ask for adoption, and that is the building blocks that all the department heads will use to start drafting their budgets. And then we'll pass the temporary appropriations later this year through our budget process. And then by April 1st of 2025, we'll pass our permanent appropriations per the Ohio Revised Code. So the schedule is in front of you, and it can be passed as presented.
This is a public portion of our hearing. Is there anyone present who would like to have any questions or speak about this proposed tax budget? Seeing no one, I will close the public portion of the hearing. And is there any discussion with anyone here on our board?
I didn't have any questions over any of the items on here. It was, all pretty standard stuff.
Okay. Mr. Zaharieff, did you have any comments?
Nope.
Okay. Hearing no comments and no other explanations, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a Thank you. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-0624-FIN-A, a resolution authorizing estimated available resources beginning January 1st, 2025 as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Motion to close the public
We
hearing.
will.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. We can now move on to our regular trustee meeting.
Okay. Will all those that are capable please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We have an agenda. Are there any changes or corrections?
None.
Okay,
I make a motion to approve the agenda for the June 24th, 2024 meeting as presented and to excuse Trustee Kretz from the meeting this evening.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the general ledger report in the amount of $344,673.06 for the June 12th, 2024 payroll.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to accept the payments listing report in the amount of $267,032.08 for warrants through June 20th, 2024.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
We have minutes for the June 10th, 2024 regular trustee meeting. I make a motion to accept those minutes as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes. This is a portion of our meeting where we have citizens that would want to speak. Is there anyone here that would like to speak for any subject in front of the Board of Trustees? Seeing no one, we'll move on to old business, which is none. New business, none. Greene County Sheriff's Office, we have no business. Human Resources,
Yes, Board, we do have one item for consideration, and that is a policy update to our general statement policy. This policy simply outlines our township policy handbook, which is the policy guide that all township employees have to follow unless there is a circumstance in terms of a collective bargaining agreement in which this specifically outlines the rights and work conditions of those classification of employees. There are two recommended edits to this policy. One is to allow what's referred to as immaterial changes to the township handbook. So this would provide the human resource manager, upon approval of the township administrator, the ability to make, quite frankly, spelling errors or grammatical errors or errors such as table of contents. We do not have explicitly outlined in the policy that gives any staff member the ability to make those changes. We clearly have found, as we're going through policy by policy, which is one of the goals I gave to the HR manager, we're finding inconsistencies, some grammatical errors, content errors, but those will not be discussed within the material change. These are things such as we have a policy, for example, in which the section number has been used twice. So by having an immaterial change policy, upon approval of myself as township administrator, the HR manager would be able to amend that section and make it fit within the handbook. Again, this does not allow any amendment of content, any amendment of right, or give any duty. This just allows immaterial, non-material changes. The second recommendation is to remove the section under the policy that requires departmental work rules to have to come in front of the board for adoption. Currently, departmental work rules, as you see in front of you, have to be approved by both the township administrator and the board of township trustees. Department work rules can be anything from, for example, finance department. They have internal controls and procedures of how they do, for example, every transaction has to have segregation of duties or dual authorization for certain transfers. These departmental work rules are operation, they're day-to-day, and they're under my purview as township administrator to administer the day-to-day of the township with the guidance of my department heads. I believe we have graduated, and I'm very fortunate that we have graduated to a point where the day-to-day operations no longer need to be under the purview of the board, and we are now to a point where we have the ability to have professional staff, that anticipate things and look towards the future. So by having these policies, these departmental work rules, there still need to be approval, and that approval will be by me as township administrator. So there'll still be a check and balance, as it were, but it would not be permitted to come from the board for approval. So those are the two changes to the policy, and I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
well, this will expedite some of the changes and make things faster in each department, I believe.
Absolutely.
Any comments?
and can be passed as
Those-
presented.
Those were mine. Make a motion to, is there a sample motion on here?
It
I
can be
didn't see it
passed
at
as
the end.
presented, the general statement, policy update as presented.
I make a motion to, pass the general statement policy, as presented.
I'll second that.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. We will now move on to a maintenance agreement. So this maintenance agreement was negotiated between Beavercreek Township and the Hillside Farms development. As a reminder, Hillside Farms is the development that is going in off of Hilltop. Once you pass over from Dayton Xenia, cross over from Treybine, and it becomes Dayton Xenia becomes Hilltop. Hillside Farms will be one of the township's first rental communities that is age targeted, and the product in which they are constructing, all the internal streets are all private streets that go above and beyond public standards. They use concrete and high quality materials. There are 2 streets that remain outside of their development that this agreement will contemplate. One is Cross Country Drive, which is essentially the boulevard entrance off of Treybine into the site. And then 2 is Harlow Lane. Harlow Lane currently exists. Most of it is being abandoned, but this northern portion that is north from the entrance of the Hillside Farms development needs to be maintained because there is a parcel owned by a private landowner north of this development that needs public access to their property. So in order for them to have that public access, we agreed to keep these roads public. However, to avoid diverting public resources from our public service department, the developer was kind enough to agree that they would take this under a maintenance agreement in perpetuity and maintain that from everything from snow removal to simple maintenance, pothole repair, up to even road resurfacing. They would do that as long as they give us a 12-month notice, so that way we can program it in the next year's appropriation so we can capture that, but we can also include that within the regular paving schedule. Obviously, these are going to be built to high standards, so that's going to be many, many decades down the road. But we are appreciative of Hillside Farms for working with us on this agreement, so that way we can come to a mutually agreeable solution to this unique problem, having this parcel up here in the north need to have that public access. This has been reviewed by legal, and there are no recommended changes. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. There is a sample motion on page 23 and in front of you.
I don't have any questions. I think it's a good thing to have done, so thank you.
All right. I make a motion to approve, motion number 2024-0624-PSD-A, to approve the agreement by and between Beavercreek Township and Hillside Farms Real Estate LLC, and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. We'll now move on to our fire department. I'm going to turn this meeting over to Chief Vandenbos. We do have a purchase request, so I'll turn it over to Chief Vandenbos.
Thank you, Board. And then I'm actually going to turn it over to Chief Easter, who actually took care of this in my absence last week while I was on vacation, and probably has much more and better information than I could provide on the topic. So I'll let him address it.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, Board.
Good evening.
What you see in front of you is another phase in our reevaluation of our current apparatus fleet. This time we're talking about our medical transport units. The request in front of you is to purchase 3 medical transport units. We have currently 8 medical transport units in our fleet. 4 of those are in reserve status, and as our maintenance department or public service department will attest to, they are all in poor condition. We definitely use those the most of anything in our fleet. So we formed a committee which included Alan, our mechanic, along with several representatives from different levels in our organization, just like we did the fire apparatus. to kind of look at everything from the ground up to make sure that we weren't missing anything, look for opportunities for change to better serve our community in a more cost-effective fashion. And from that, we are actually recommending a pretty significant change to our medical transport units. Currently, we use a heavy-duty chassis with a large box on the back of the ambulance. The recommendation is actually to move to a Ford F550 chassis or equivalent, which is a smaller chassis, but it accomplishes or attacks one of the problems that we've been facing, and that's the ride and patient care in the back of the ambulance. Currently, the heavy-duty chassis provide a very rough ride. Our patients complain about it on a regular basis. Plus, the longevity and the maintenance costs to keep those suspension systems up have been pretty extraordinary from our perspective. Moving to a smaller chassis, more of a pickup style chassis, the agencies that are currently running that around us are proving to have better results, especially long term, and the repairs are estimated to be about a third of the cost of what they are for our current chassis for a similar repair. So while we may have to do more of those repairs, we're not exceeding what we're currently spending just to maintain our current medic units. I had the opportunity to meet with Trustee Kretz last week as well, and he posed some questions that I wanted to make sure that you were aware of as well. And one of those questions was, why a 550 chassis versus a 450 chassis? So I did some research with that. The 450 chassis and the 550 are both comparable. They will both handle the size of box that we were looking to provide. However, the manufacturer that we have recommended can actually deliver us medic units in a more timely fashion than the others. So they have 3 medics that are on a 550 chassis on the line now that we are hoping to be able to purchase. And so those production times are cut by using the 550 chassis. Cost perspective, they are within $2,000 of each other from the MSRP for each chassis. The 550 does offer a significant higher, not a significant, but a higher payload capacity. So the 450 chassis will haul up to 9,850 pounds, whereas the 550 chassis will haul 12,750 pounds. So a 3,000 pound difference roughly. And the manufacturer has chosen to use the 550 with theirs, but we did have both quoted. And actually the 450 was more expensive from another vendor than the 550 is on the recommendation. The other consideration that Mr. Kretz wanted us to take into account was our medic units do a lot of idle time. So our engine hours are significantly higher than our mileage ratio. And when our medics are idling, they're usually running hard and the engines get very hot. And so we're actually able to do kind of a conversion. He asked about an equivalent for that hourly rate. And so in the packet, I did include kind of a look at that. I was able to find 2 different conversion factors. One was 27.5 miles per engine hour. And that was a low wear, meaning the truck would idle, but there weren't a lot of heavy impacts to the motor, versus a 60 mile per hour conversion factor, which is high wear, meaning the engine gets hot, the components within the engine take a lot more wear and tear, and that seems to be more applicable with the type of wear that we provide with them. When we idle those apparatus in the wintertime and in the summertime, those HVAC systems have to stay running to keep our medications in the appropriate temperature so that they're usable, and so we do put quite a bit of wear. And when you look at that conversion factor, you can see in the chart we have apparatus that are anywhere from 264,000 miles when we do the hour conversion all the way up through 742,000 miles equivalent on that chassis. So a pretty significant amount of wear causing a significant engine wear and significant repair costs. So the goal at this point is to move forward with the purchase of 3 medic units. If we're able to attain them from Horton with the 3 that are in the line, we may see them before the end of this year. If we're not, we will probably see them in 2025. We're purchasing a stock unit, which is how they cut down on the build times. We've made some modifications to make it fit the Beavercreek spec. Both Public Service Director and our mechanic have reviewed the proposals, and we're requesting to move forward with that. I'd be happy to answer any other questions for you that I can.
I just had some comments. One is, I really appreciate that both of you, both chiefs, to bring in the mechanics involved in the discussion. I think that's really important. I don't believe other townships or cities do that. And, I think the people that are working on these motors and these chassis should have a voice on what they're doing, because they're the ones that ultimately are responsible for the maintenance of our engines. So I think that's very important, and I think it's important that we share that with the public. And when we do maybe our popcorn festival and stuff, that these are kind of the points that we should share with the public, that, you know, these are the kind of questions and stuff that our citizens should know about, that we really delve down to our maintenance people and find out what they want. And the same as we did with the fire engine, we talked to the fire crew on what they wanted to see, the developments on how to build an engine, rather than the top level saying this is what we want. So I think that's really important. The other thing is what I want to check on is, I don't know the name, I know the apparatus, the mechanism that has the wheels that pulls the stretcher out. Will that be able to be taken off and put on the new, we won't have to
Yes.
buy a whole new system?
Correct. The power load system, as well as the striker cot that are
Striker
part of our
cots.
Life 360 package, will move over into the new medics.
Okay.
And so those not only protect the patient in a rollover crash, but we also have additional safety features to protect the crew inside there that are not in our current medics.
Great, thank you.
Moving from the heavy duty chassis to the F550 chassis, is there any difference in like the way, the height that the medic sits or anything like that would make a difference in how you operate or load patients or get in and out or any of that?
So overall, the overall height of the apparatus, as well as the patient floor of the patient compartment, will be lower because the chassis is lower. The inside height of the box, however, is staying the same compared to what we currently run. It's just sitting on a lower chassis. When we took a look at the operability, the power load system accommodates or compensates for that. So when the cot goes to its wheeled position, the power load system will place the cot on the ground. And when we go to load it in, it will capture the cot and then take it off of the ground. So it is adjusted when they make the install to allow that to happen in a safe manner. So our overall height will be slightly lower, so that may allow us to get under a couple of overhangs that we currently are not able to. However, we try to not use overhangs when we don't absolutely have to, just because there is a risk there every time.
Do you anticipate the amount of time that you're able to use the medics? I mean, some of the current medics are, 10 plus years old. Do you anticipate, since they are on a less heavy duty chassis, them to remain in the fleet just as long? Or do you think that will be something that'll have to be replaced sooner?
So the projection is that we will probably have to replace the chassis once during the medic's lifespan, possibly twice. So part of the design that's in front of you is to actually order a white medic, and we will wrap it with the decals instead of painting it. Not only does that have a cost savings to the township because it is cheaper to wrap it than it is to paint the unit, but then when we would go to take the patient care box off of one chassis and place it onto another one, we would rewrap the whole thing so that the paint matched and the image matched as well. Currently, Alan is projecting that we will probably want to re-chassis these once to get to the current lifespan of what our heavy-duty medics have been, which will then also refresh the suspension from the patient care aspect. So it's kind of a win-win from that side of it. And then they are significantly less cost than the medium-duty medic as well. So we're still a net savings to the township, even with re-chassing during the lifespan that we're projecting.
Any other?
I think those were my only questions.
Well, Board, we have several motions. Let me get to the page here so I can assist you on that.
Thank you very much, Chief Easter.
These are all under one PO, so the actual requisition number is the same, but it's multiple lines on that PO. So don't fret, that is not an accident, that's intentional. And it's all spelled out, each of the motions for each individual purchase, which totals out to the total that you saw at the top of the 15 points of light.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0221 to Horton Emergency Vehicles for the purchase of 3 medic units in the amount of $1,025,320.80 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0221 to Yipes Stripes for the purchase of vinyl graphics for 3 ambulances in the amount of $29,955 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0221 to Motorola Solutions for the purchase of 3 mobile radios in the amount of $20,685.99 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0221 to Atlantic Emergency Solutions for the purchase of 3 thermal imaging cameras in the amount of $9,917.67 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0221 to Columbus Supply for the purchase of hand lights in the amount of $2,700 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve purchase request 24-fire-0221 to P&R Communications for the purchase of radio headsets in the amount of $9,142.33 and to authorize the township administrator to sign for the board.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And it is worthy to note, this was a levy promise. So this is something that was contemplated in the 10-year funding plan that our residents were graciously supporting us in that effort. The monies are dedicated singly for that purpose. We have them sitting in the new ambulance fund that can only be used for this purpose. So it is a significant spend, but it's one that is planned, it's one that's taken very seriously. You heard all the input, and one that we normally would not, want not a full board, but obviously, as mentioned, Trustee Crutch was given the opportunity to review it independently and provide comments. So thank you for that. Thank you, Board. Our last action item before we get to the trustee reports, under legal, we do have another opioid settlement that has come through the courts and have been flushed out of their system, as it were, and now the settlement this time is with Kroger. So this settlement is one of the many opioid settlements that we have participated in. This is a new settlement. We do not know the exact dollar amount, but as you recall, we are utilizing several of the opioid settlements for the Township Sheriff's Substation, K9 Maverick, as well as the additional deputy, as well as the cruiser for that deputy, is all being paid for by this opioid settlement. This is another opportunity that our finance director was notified of, and that we want to move forward with. Like many of the other settlements, they do not disperse the monies often. It's an 11-year disbursement, but it is over $1 billion, if I'm not mistaken. But to give some context, we're not going to give a significant amount, but relative to participating and getting some monies that we can utilize to our substation and other interdiction efforts, it is worthwhile. So the resolution has been approved by legal, and the agreement has been reviewed and approved by legal, and it can be passed by title only.
Make a motion to adopt resolution number 2024-0624-legal-A, a resolution authorizing the participation in the Kroger opioid settlement as presented.
Second.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Ms. Wallace?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. That's all I have.
Before we move on, I would like Even though we did not have any report from Community Development, Mr. Rushing, I'd like you to publicly introduce to the public our new
Yes.
director.
I'm very happy to have day one with us, Andy Earhart, our new Community Development Director. This was his first day today. He's already been involved in many meetings and getting acquainted in his office, and we have many more exciting events this week, so we do appreciate and welcome you aboard.
Thank you.
Welcome, thank you.
And we go to our fiscal officer.
I have nothing.
You have nothing, okay. Then MVRPC, we have no report. MVRPC Technical Advisory Committee,
June meeting is canceled.
okay. Everybody's going on a summer recess. Regional Task Force, our meeting is tomorrow at 2. We are putting together, the executive committee will be trained, and we have a lot of documentation that we have to provide ourselves for the evaluation of the RFPs. And we will be doing RFP, looking at the 145, I believe, RFPs in probably July. So things are moving along on that regard. Regional planning, Greene County, I believe Mr. Kretz is not here. Health Department,
I just want to mention again about guard care coming up in August, the 10th and the 11th. August 10th, it'll be from 8 to 4. The 11th, it is from 8 to 3, and that is at the Greene County Career Center. There is a whole lot of free medical services that they provide to the public, and again, it's all free for residents. Anything from car seat checks, child development screenings, dental exams, fillings, extractions. They have lab work, mammograms, Medicaid enrollment, mental health screenings, and consultations, Narcan kits. They do a drug take back if you need to get rid of any old prescriptions that you have, vaccines, sports physicals, vision exams, and again, it's all free to the public. So that's something that I'm sure there's a lot of residents that would like to, participate in that. So it is again on the 10th and the 11th of August at the Career Center.
great, thank you. School Superintendent, City Manager,
Meetings Wednesday.
great. Wright Patterson Air Force Base, Restoration, no meeting. Greene County Water Wastewater Committee.
No report.
Greene County Township Association, no report. Investment Oversight,
We have a meeting scheduled, July, coming up in July, how about that?
okay.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Greene County 911 Advisory Committee, no report.
No.
Okay.
Unless Chief Easter, did you have anything from 911 perspective?
The next state 911 committee meeting is July 15th at 11 a.m. at the Rife Building in Columbus. I am planning to actually attend that. They'll be talking quite a bit about the funding distribution. They're calculating that the funding distribution for 911 funds is about 2 months behind what it was at this time of the calendar year last year. So far, the state has collected an additional $3.484 million over the previous year with the increase in funding, but they're expecting it'll be at least another 2 months before that starts to level out. So as Greene County has taken their disbursements, and we've been calculating those, they are under what was projected, but there is still room for growth with that. And so the July 15th meeting will be kind of an update to see where the state is at with that, so I'll be attending that then. And then the next meeting for the Greene County is July 24th as well. So right after the state meeting, we'll have an update meeting for Greene County.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other information for the good of the order?
No. Motion to adjourn.
I
Accept the
motion to adjourn.
Second.
I got it. Tom was always saying it, so I gotta say it. Mrs. Dean,
Yes.
Miss Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.